All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us here today to in this webinar to talk about how students across Alabama who are experiencing homelessness can obtain a free driver's license. Glad to have you here today. Appreciate people putting in the chat where they're coming from. It's always good to know what part of the state you all are in, and we'll look forward to the dialogue today and digging into both how this law came about and how it's being implemented. So I want to just get us going here quickly with a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is going to last somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. We encourage you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you do have any questions, and we'll try and get to those as we're moving through, but we also should have some time at the end that we can address any questions. Session is being recorded. We'll share slides both afterwards, and actually we'll also put a link in the chat so you can have those as we move along. My name is Elliot Williams. I'm the Senior Program Manager for State Policy at SchoolHouse Connection. I'll be joined today by Rod Montz, also with SchoolHouse Connection, Jeremy Seaman with the Alabama Department of Education, and Denise Reamer from Mobile County Public Schools. So before we get through our agenda, I always like to start with a little bit about Schoolhouse Connection and some data. So we'll start with Schoolhouse Connection, in case you all are not familiar, works to overcome homelessness from prenatal to post-secondary through strategic advocacy and practical assistance in partnership with youth, families, schools, early childhood programs, institutions of higher education, and service providers. You can see on this page, there's a link to our website where you can learn more and encourage you to also join our newsletter. So there we go. Want to also just ground us here in who we're talking about here in Alabama. You can see this number, 912 unaccompanied homeless children and youth who are identified by Alabama Public Schools during the 22 to 23 school year. And that's out of 11,264 total pre-K through 12 students experiencing homelessness. As many of you know, given your roles, these are likely undercount numbers with the challenges in identifying students. And I think it's also really important to point out that the prevalence of homelessness is statistically identical in rural and urban areas. So briefly want to talk through our agenda. We're going to start by walking through the development of the policy that we'll be talking about today and how that came about, as well as the legislative campaign. I'll walk through very quickly what the law actually says. And then we're going to spend the meat of our time today with Jeremy and Denise talking about how the law is being implemented across the state and some examples of how it's being done at the local level. Finally, we'll talk about how you all can support youth in obtaining these driver's licenses and some resources we've put together, and then we'll close with some time for questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denise and Rod. We're going to talk about the legislative campaign and even before that, how this policy was developed by folks in Alabama. So Denise?
Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Reamer, and I am the District Homeless Liaison for Mobile County Public Schools. We are the largest school system in the state of Alabama with a little over 50,000 students and 90 school campuses. 12 of those are high school campuses. So wanted to tell you a little bit about how this began in Alabama. Our former ALSDE coordinator, homeless coordinator, Kristen Dial, we reached out to her, both myself and Patricia Julianelle, who was the legal counsel for Schoolhouse Connection. And actually, I was looking back in my emails today, and that happened in January of 2021. So 4 years ago, about right now. And I had seen Patricia at a NACCE conference, and we were talking about some state advocacy, state policy changes in Alabama. And so between myself and Patricia, we reached out to our state homeless coordinator, Ms. Dial, and came together with some other district liaisons across the state, kind of a cross section. Kristen picked those liaisons to be on the committee. And then we started talking about what the political climate was here in Alabama and what might work here in Alabama as far as some changes in policy. And we talked about the single point of contact first at the at institutions of higher learning. And we also talked about the driver's license law because Patricia had explained to me that that they had been able to get that passed in about 16 different states. And so we just started having conversations and Zoom meetings throughout 2021 and really just talking about what would work in Alabama and at the state legislature. And so that's how we started. And then we kind of pared it down. We also did some youth surveys, and Patricia provided some gift cards to our students who answered the surveys. And we sent that out to both community providers in our community. I'm sure the other liaisons did the same thing. We sent it out to community providers like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Boys and Girls Clubs, and anywhere that there would be those homeless youth so that we could get their input as well. And so between the liaisons and the political climate and those youth survey and liaison surveys, we came to the understanding that the driver's license would probably be the best one to try first in Alabama. And so that's what we did. And then I'll hand it over to Rod from here.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that background. My name is Rod Mons. I am the Director of State Policy here at SchoolHouse Connection. I've been here for over 3 years now, and I actually picked up the ball from my predecessor, Patricia Julianelle, and carried it forward from there. My job as Director of State Policy is working with legislators, advocates, educators, service providers, and youth and families with lived experience on policy solutions to address youth homelessness. Your words really warm my heart, Denise, because it's often as a result of conversations at meetings or conferences about this work that these bills really evolve. So after identifying what it is that needed to be addressed there, we began to try to identify a legislative sponsor. We had a really great pro bono lobbyist to help us work directly with legislators in Montgomery. And former Rep. Kyle South stepped up to lead the effort. He was a Republican legislator who represented parts of Fayette, Lamar, Tuscaloosa, and Jefferson counties. The bill focused on waiving driver's license fees for students experiencing homelessness between 15 and 19 years old. Rep. South did a great job in addressing those issues that would really resonate with legislators and focusing intentionally on promoting this as an issue important to both educational outcomes and workforce development. Ironically, as a side note, Rep. South ended up leaving the legislature and becoming the executive director of a chamber of commerce. But that gives you an idea of how great he was at making the workforce development case. It's also important to point out that this is an issue that really resonates in a lot of states because of that. Folks understand the challenges getting workers represent and the transportation challenges that folks who don't live in areas with mass transit have to deal with. So we emphasize that, and we continue to do that actually in states across the political spectrum who see these bills as workforce development focused as well as education focused. And in addition to IDs, things like driver's licenses, things like state IDs and birth certificates and other vital records are often included in these legislative efforts. But Representative South did a good job of keeping those two issues at the forefront. And as a result, was able to build quite a bit of bipartisan support. Senator Kirk Hatcher from the Montgomery County area stepped up to carry the bill on the Senate side. And it ended up being a really great bipartisan effort that resulted in the bill passing 98-2 in the House and I believe 29-0 in the Senate. And since the bill's passage, we've been working to promote the fact that the law has passed. And now that it has, there's a really great resource that we want to make sure as many youth who are able to are taking advantage of. And so we've been working with some digital assets to push out the fact that this is available. But we thought this webinar would be a really great tool to add to that and to help increase awareness. And that's how we arrived at where we are today. So one of the roles Elliot fills here is ensuring that once we pass laws, that they are implemented effectively. And he has taken steps to pursue that with this bill here, and I'll let him take over from this point.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Thanks, Denise, for that history. I think it's always helpful to understand where we came from and where this idea started, uh, as we're talking about moving forward and some of the reasons behind it. So as Rod was just talking about, we want to make sure that we're not only passing these laws, but they're being implemented effectively and that people are aware of them. So as a result, this past fall, we did a survey since we were a couple years out from when the bill passed to see how things were going and how familiar people are with it. And I appreciate anybody on this webinar who did fill out that survey. What we found out was that there were a lot of people still not familiar with it. And not surprisingly, if people aren't familiar with it, they probably hadn't attempted to help anybody get a license. Now, recognizing that there's a lot of folks who have been doing this work, but at least from the survey, the people that filled it out, people hadn't been familiar. So as Rod said, that was really the goal behind this webinar, was to make folks more familiar with the law and really give them the tools to support youth in obtaining a driver's license. We also heard from that survey that people really would like some outreach materials to help spread awareness. So as we've alluded to a couple times, we've created a few pieces there. So we'll get to that later on. But before we go any farther, I wanted to just get a sense from everybody on the call if you are familiar with this law and if you have actually done any work in terms of supporting youth in their applications. So we created a brief poll, just a yes or no question that I'm going to send out to everybody right now and see how many folks on the call are familiar. Apologize for that.
Elliot, I don't know if anybody else is having trouble, but it won't let me click the yes button. I don't know why. Oh, I see. It says hosts and panelists cannot vote. Okay, never mind. Thank
Oh,
you.
I don't know what's going on with my screen share here. So let me.
Feel free to voice vote, Denise.
I'm guessing you're familiar.
Yes, we have helped some folks.
All right. Well, I'm gonna just wait 1 or 2 more seconds. It looks like we've gotten just about everybody on here. All right, I'm gonna end that poll and share our results. And it's not quite as overwhelming as our survey, but it does seem clear that a lot of folks haven't done this supporting students as they're trying to apply for driver's license. So excited to hopefully change these numbers quickly after we get through the webinar today and provide you all with the tools. So thank you for including that information in our webinar. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it now over to Jeremy. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to quickly talk through the summary of the law and then turn it over to Jeremy to talk about how it's being implemented. So, as Rod alluded to, really the core of what you all did with this law was to exempt 15 to 19-year-old students who are experiencing homelessness from paying fees for their driver's license, for their duplicate license, or importantly, for the actual exam itself. So that's the basics of the law. Now, it's important also to understand who qualifies for this fee exemption. So first, the student needs to meet the definition of a homeless child or youth, and this is a definition taken from the federal McKinney-Vento Act. So that does include students who have lost their own housing and are staying with family or friends or doubled up. It includes students who are in shelters, in hotels and motels. And the student also needs to be between the ages of 15 and 19, and importantly, enrolled in school or a GED program or job training program. Now, there are a few exemptions from the enrollment requirements, including related to employment or if somebody is physically or mentally unable to attend school, but the enrollment requirement piece is critical to the puzzle here. So with that brief overview, I am going to turn it now over to Jeremy to talk about how the law is being implemented across the state. Jeremy?
Hey, it says my microphone is muted.
I can hear you now.
Okay, all right, good. I had to hit a button. Having to do it on my phone. I don't have Zoom downloaded on my state computer. All right, I'm Jeremy Seaman, State Department of Education, Administrator of Driver Education. So I am familiar with this law because of the dealings we have with the school enrollment form. And of course, you've heard about the inception and how it was incorporated on the school enrollment form. It is labeled there as check if the student is a qualified student, defined per Act 2022-300. And the reason we use that verbiage is because that's the way it's defined in the law. Spoke with Elliot yesterday, and I've about a few of the issues or hurdles, if you will, of getting this form filled out and to the ELIA exam office where the students actually apply for their learner's license. It's a slippery slope because if people, the chain of command basically with this form is student goes to in most cases, student goes to the front office and sees a counselor or registrar and gets their form, and then takes it to the ELIA exam office where they take their other documents and apply for that initial learner's license or state ID. And the registrar or counselor there will fill the form out. And if they are labeled as homeless, in our system, they will check that this student is a qualified student. So they at the time don't know they will not be charged for that learner's license fee, which is $36.25, unless they're getting that vessel endorsement added, which would be an additional $5, which they wouldn't have to pay for either. The concern Leah had was the revenue they generate from a driver license form, the driver license fees, is not with the homeless students because they want to follow the law, but was with everyone else knowing that checking that box meant they don't have to pay a driver license fee when they go to an ELIA exam office. And that's why it's not in code, if you will. It doesn't say check here if the student's homeless, so their driver license fee will be waived. But if you look at the second page of the DL 93 form, it does have the law there, a brief description of the law. So that's just kind of a little bit of the, if you're wondering why it's labeled like that on the school enrollment form, and that is an ALEA form. A memo did go out to schools. Let me pull that up here. I just had it on September. It goes out every year, but this year came from our office on September the 16th with the form and a description of the form to, I was going to see who all it was actually addressed to. Superintendent memo went out to principals, superintendents, guidance counselors, and registrars. And it included the homeless vernacular, along with the Taylor's Law, which is another law in Alabama, which delays students from getting their learner's license if they have any disciplinary infraction points. And now, as I was also told Elliot yesterday, I'm probably not the best person to be spreading this word of homeless students not having to pay a driver license fee, because the majority of students that are in driver education come with a learner's license. Some systems require a learner's license before they ever get into driver education. And my dealings 98% of the time are with driver education teachers. And it doesn't do them a whole lot of good to tell their students that they don't have to pay a license fee if they're homeless. And we tread lightly there, because we also don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable and just throw out, hey, everybody that's labeled as homeless doesn't have to pay a fee. Not exactly sure who that comes from, and that's why we get the word out to the counselors, registrars, and those that are filling out the DL-93 form. And every time we go around to schools, myself and 3 others will touch base with whoever fills this form out and mention the Taylor's Law and the qualified student portion of the DL-93 form. Now in Mobile County, Denise, are you familiar with the process of students getting that DL-93 form in Mobile County?
Yes, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So if we are, I didn't know how much more you needed to talk about, but I will say to you too, that our homeless coordinator for the state of Alabama, LaDonna Rudolph, our current state homeless coordinator, she did also send out that memo from
Okay.
Superintendent Mackey to all district liaisons throughout
Right.
the state, district homeless liaisons. So we did get that as well. And of course, that's very important because we know who these children are and we know who the students are, and we can, we have updated lists that we can download, that are from Power School, and then it overnights into the AIM portal at the state level. And so we can download that. We give those to our registrars who keep those homeless lists and very confidential. And then we have some districts have points of contact at each school, and then some districts have liaisons, other liaisons that are trained in addition to the district liaison, like myself. I have a team of 13 liaisons who can go and meet with these students and tell them that this law does exist. And we also, this form is filled out at our central office. That's what I was going to say in my portion as well, is that in your district, you really need to know who completes this form, because that's very important, because that's going to determine how you get it done and how fast you can get it done. And the great thing about our district is that we are part of student support services. So part of our job is to remove barriers, and our division includes all of the attendants. So our attendance supervisor and his staff are the folks that can fill out this form and sign it. And one of those folks is a notary, or maybe 2 are a notary. And she actually, fills it out, signs it, seals it with her notary seal, just to be extra sure that the people at the DMV don't question us. So, so that is important to know.
deliver those to the school, or do you require them to come to the central office to get that form?
We can deliver them to the school if transportation is an issue, and certainly for our homeless students, we don't, we'll make sure that the student gets it. We don't make them come here. We'll bring it to the school. If there's a transportation issue for another student who's not homeless, then we can also, the attendance officers or social workers can get it to the school.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the things I've heard from driver education teachers in Mobile County is that it's sometimes difficult for them to come to the central office, especially down from the bayou and far out
Yes,
places.
sir.
Arrangements to
We
get there. School enrollment.
agree. Mhm.
Um,
Because we're such a large district and our county's 100 miles long, and we have those 12 different high schools. And you're right, it is very difficult in Mobile County. So, but thank you for that feedback, and I'll definitely get with our attendance supervisor to let him know that that is the feedback. But we do have lots of folks who are itinerant, as I said, like our attendance officers and our social workers, our resource officers, and those kinds of folks that can get it to the schools.
Okay.
So are you going to go through some more guidance, Jeremy?
That's basically all I had. I mean, the process and the fact that I do all I can to get the word out, but it's people, I don't, first time you and I have met, and you are obviously a lot better at identifying those students and helping them out. You're in a better position than I am because of who you deal with on a daily basis versus who I'm in contact with on a daily basis. And LaDonna as well, that's coming up next. You talked with her a little bit, and she's got some ideas about how to better serve the population.
Great. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you know LaDonna, and she's great at getting information out to all the district liaisons so that we can serve the students better. So anything that comes across her desk that can help us help our homeless students, she gets it to us right away. And so she's definitely your point of contact at the state level and she has a listserv for us, an email group for all the district liaisons. And so she's always sending us out good stuff. So if you have anything else that you need to get to us, that's definitely the way to do it. And then we can get it out to our to the folks at in our district level.
Also, that
sorry, go ahead.
The students, I may have mentioned it, I ramble sometimes. After they pay that initial learner's license fee, they don't have to pay another fee for their driver license. They can either go online, go to an office, whether it be a LEA exam or probate office, and just request a graduated driver license. They're not paying a fee after that initial learner's license fee up until the point of renewal 4 years later.
Yes, that's what we found out too. So one of the things that, in supporting our homeless youth that we have found out here in Mobile County is that the driver's license folks didn't really know about this either. And so I think some awareness and education for our service providers who our GED program service providers, alternative diploma, and any of those providers in our community who touch our homeless youth, whether it be, like I said before, like Big Brothers Big Sisters or Boys and Girls Clubs, or just any of the different community organizations that are out there. Our community rec centers are really big here. So we work with our city of Mobile and county folks who have those rec centers where kids go after school, sometimes to do different programming or just, work out or do basketball or whatever the sport is that they're interested in. So we work really closely with our Mobile Parks and Recreation Department and our Community Affairs Office, just so that they know that this is out there as well. And then what we find most helpful is to have an adult go with the homeless youth. If they don't have a parent, so if they're not living with their parent in a doubled up situation or a shelter or a motel, if they are that unaccompanied youth, then we definitely are going to send an adult with them, usually one of our liaisons, but maybe somebody from the school. And I guess I was going to ask you too, Jeremy, I don't know, is that something that the driver's ed folks, do they ever do that, or do they ever accompany one of the youth to the driver's license bureau if they don't have an adult in their life or somebody who can do that?
Yeah, we've had teachers take students to the Lee exam offices to get their learner's license and driver licenses. Yes, they do it, and it's on a
Okay.
for the majority of them, they're coming to driver education with a learner's license in most places. And some systems, like I said, even require to have a learner's license when they get into driver education. So, but yes, we
And
have some that
okay,
take them to the Lee exam office.
that's really good to know. So in the cases that we've had, we have had some parents who are not able to go because to go with their student at to the ILEA office because they're at work or whatever. So we're trying to provide transportation to them. We do have some district company vehicles that we, utilize. If it's an accompanied homeless youth, then we will, get permission from the school or anybody that the student may be temporarily staying with, so that at least we've got that waiver, to be able to take them. And then if we do have a parent who is in that homeless situation, we can provide bus passes or like a gas card or an Uber card to get the student there. And so that adult is with them, because 15 to 19-year-olds, those 18 and 19-year-olds, I know technically may be considered adults, but they are, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to ask, because a lot of them have never been in a situation like that in a governmental agency where they know what to do. So I think it's always good to have an adult, somebody who can support that youth and take that form and those documents that they do need, because they have to have their birth certificate and social security card. And as district liaisons, as homeless liaisons for public school systems in Alabama, we also have funding where we can, get those certified documents or make copies of them, and bring a copy of their schedule or their student ID or whatever we have to bring with us to prove that this is that student. And so just to walk you through what happens when you go to an ALEA office with a homeless youth who's 15 to 19, then they have the normal process of checking in. And then when they get called to the window, they will need to let the clerk know that they are a qualified student, and they can show them that box on the DL-183 form. And then the clerk, usually what we found, at least the first time, is the clerk had to call his or her supervisor over to the window and ask for assistance, because they really were not aware of this law and what it meant. And then the supervisor actually calls the person who filled out the form, who signed the form. In this case, it's someone in our central office, and they verify the authenticity of the qualified student box being checked. And so what they're asking for is to make sure that this is not just somebody filling out a form and bringing it into the ALEA office. We took an extra measure here in Mobile County. And what we did is we went into the Student Information System database, which is PowerSchool for Alabama, and we created a note in the attendance section of, where there's the driver's license information that you can put in. And so the person that filled out the form actually put a note in there and with the date, and said that this student is a qualified student under the Act, and is supposed to have all expenses, waived for the driver's license and the exam fee. And so the first time one of our liaisons went with the youth, she said that the people were very nice and they got through it, but she said, I don't think that the student would have been able to get through it alone. So it was, that adult presence helping and explaining what the law was. And she even took a copy of the law. And so what we've decided to do here is kind of go to all of our different ALEA offices and provide this information to the supervisors there, so that when we show up, they will kind of already have a heads up. So that's some of the things that we've been doing in Mobile County. And then I will tell you that the first student that we took, he did not pass the exam. So the exam fee is only waived one time. So you do have to pay for the exam again if you have to take it again if they don't pass. So make sure your student studies, and those resources are online. They can take free practice tests, right, Jeremy? Is that right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so while those clerks were kind of confused, I said in the beginning, it ended up being a fairly smooth process in the end, and they were all very helpful. So the other thing is, I think we talked a little bit about awareness and education. So we're going to bring those copies of the law in the form and show them that qualified student. We're going to add that little extra thing in Power School, so that little extra note. So because when the supervisor at the Aaliyah office called our person here in central office to verify the authenticity of the form, if she had not been here, then we need someone in the attendance department to be able to pull up Power School and that student information database and say, oh, well, right here in the notes, she put a note in there that says that this is a qualified student. So if that would have happened, then there would have been that extra step, that extra note in there to make sure that it was not stopped at the Aaliyah office. I talked about transportation. And then what we are also doing is we're sharing the toolkit that Schoolhouse Connection developed with all of our high school counselors and principals. So that they know that this law is out there, and that if any students come to them, or if in working with any of the students, and also our career tech teachers as well. Because a lot, you mentioned workforce development, and a lot of our students do try to get a job after school or on the weekends. And so we want our career tech folks to also know that this is out there. So we're sharing that toolkit. I'm going to get our communications department to share some of the social media posts that you guys have made. And just in general, letting our high school students know that that this is out there.
That is great, Denise. There's a question in the chat about whether a poster could be developed and posted in the classroom of driver's ed teachers, indicating the availability of the fee waiver for McKinney-Vento students. I can tell you that in other states where we've worked to try to increase awareness about laws, we've actually been asked to use some of those resources we develop for social media and so forth, to turn them into posters that can be posted in classrooms. So we absolutely could do something like that if you all would find that tool useful. I don't know if you have discussed posting something similar to that already, but we are certainly happy to assist with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the question, and Denise and Jeremy, thank you so much for spending time to go through all that. Denise, especially all those examples of the additional steps you all are taking in your district are really great examples, I think, for everybody in the state, and speaks to, just because the law is there doesn't mean that everybody knows about it or everybody knows how to utilize it. So, going office to office in terms of where folks are actually getting their licenses and having those conversations in particular seems like a great idea, but also recognize the extra work that puts on you all. So hopefully we can utilize some of the resources that we've created and other things that are out there to make it a little easier on you all in terms of spreading the word and doing that outreach. And to that end, we created, as Denise referenced a little bit earlier, a how-to page on our website. And what that does, and there's a link there in the slide deck, it includes instructions. So pretty much everything that we've talked about today in terms of how to go about getting this fee waiver, as well as a link to the law. I know Denise mentioned that they, in fact, even brought the law down with them to talk to some of these folks. So in case you ever need to reference the actual law, depending on the conversations you're having, that's on the page as well. And we've also put together this outreach toolkit that has some sample emails so you can get it out to partners as well as youth, and some sample social media posts. And in addition to the poster, which will definitely be able to support putting that together, if there's other resources, we really want to work with you all to either refine and improve what's already out there on that how-to page and the outreach toolkit, or if there's some other ideas, we're really open to hearing how we could improve on what's out there and meet the needs of you all who are having these conversations on a daily basis. So I'll pause there. Specific to resources, Jeremy or Denise, anything else that either you're aware of or you think might be useful as we're trying to raise awareness about the law?
No, but I was just looking at some numbers. Looks like about 102 sophomores this year in Mobile who were identified. Does that sound right, Denise?
Yes.
I was going to see what schools had the largest percentage. So maybe since you have a list of those students, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to get word, specifically to those students. It is a small population, but we want to make sure the student or the student's handler knows of this benefit for them. So
I think we could just download our lists of those students, and then I can just have our liaison for those high schools, our district homeless liaisons that are on our team. I can have them go to the those high schools and share that information with the driver's ed teacher, if you think that would be helpful.
they may not be in driver ed. A lot of
That's
these,
the problem. Yeah.
they may be
I
15.
was going to say that. That's what we found, is that a lot of times our homeless students get way past because of their transients, and they're just trying to catch up on core classes. They don't really have time to take driver's ed. And so a lot of times we found that they don't have a driver's license or a learner's permit, and they've gotten to like their senior year, and they just don't have room for it in their schedule. So I think what we'll probably do here in Mobile is just, print out the 15 to 19-year-old students and get that information to the counselors, the registrars, and the career tech folks. And we can also share it with the driver's ed teacher in case, or we can at least ask the counselors, do you have any of these students in driver's ed? And then maybe share that with the driver's ed teachers. Certainly if we could get the driver's ed teachers help, if needed, to get that student to the ILEA office, that might be helpful. I don't know if they can do that if they're not in driver's ed though.
Yeah, no, it would be it'd be tricky if they weren't in driver education to put them in that driver ed car and take them off.
Okay.
They would need
Okay.
permission from a parent or guardian and administration, and a lot of the students, they may be in ninth grade and going to get a learner's license and not even be to that point where they're in driver education yet, or like you said, they may not have room in their schedule for driver education. So I'm going to see if I could pull. I don't know that I can pull students in driver education that are identified as homeless. I don't think I have that ability.
I might be. Our IT folks, he's pretty good. He usually can pull me a report for just about anything. So I might ask him if he can pull that report. If he can, I'll let you and LaDonna know
Okay.
that report can be pulled out of Power School, and then we can, give that information back to all the liaisons as well. Because that might narrow it down, because we could focus on those kids first. But I mean, a lot of times, like in Mobile County, most of our numbers are in elementary and middle. We have fewer numbers in high school of our homeless students. So looking at those numbers, like you said about the sophomores, I mean, that's not that huge a number, especially when you're splitting that over 12 high schools.
Yeah, you're averaging probably 10 to 15 per high school in the 10th grade. Ninth grade's a little larger population
Yes, it is.
here at least. And those would be the ones going to get their learner's license maybe already. That would need to be informed.
Okay.
Yeah,
But yeah,
listening to you talk, Denise and Jeremy, it sounded like it may be worth trying to get to students a little earlier so they have that in mind as they prepare for the process.
That's a good idea too. Yeah. Thanks, Rod.
Yeah.
But yeah, driver education teachers, they are aware. They get the memos, they get the emails from me, and now what they do with the information, I'm not sure 100% of the time, but they are aware of the DL 93 and the Taylor's Law and the qualified student section of it, or should be. I say anybody that's gone through our certification class in the last 5 years is aware of it. With the Taylor's Law, and then most recently, last couple of years, the qualified student edition.
Yeah, and to the earlier question, Jeremy, to your knowledge, any of the teachers have information posted?
No, we don't have information posted on it.
Okay.
Not opposed to it. We absolutely would if we could. I really wouldn't know where to begin with creating posters, though, unless you already have some that we could send.
And we can take some of the digital tools that we developed and turn that into something that
We'll get them out in the classrooms for sure in the schools.
Yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned, that's something that we've done previously in similar efforts in California and in Texas.
Yep. I just got confirmation from Aaliyah. There's only been 9 students issued under the Qualified Act. Or there was only 9 students in 2024 that took advantage of the no fee driver statewide. So 26 in 2023.
Okay. Well, hopefully through this work, we can change that for the better.
Yeah, we'll get those numbers up definitely in Mobile County alone.
Yeah, we're about to do a huge campaign to try to do that. So hopefully those numbers will go way up. I think LaDonna said she had a question, but she doesn't have a mic.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how to allow her to ask it. LaDonna, if you don't mind putting it in the chat, I'll try and figure out how to allow you to ask that. But if nothing else, the chat or the Q&A, we'd be happy to answer any questions in perfect timing as we move on to our questions. So Lynn's question is only for driver's license, not learner's permit. Jeremy, you want to answer that?
I will. It is for a learner's license. There is no driver license fee. There's no fee to go from a learner's license to a graduated driver license in Alabama. They pay the $36.25 for their learner's license, and then when they get their driver license, they do not pay another fee until they renew 4 years later.
Donna's question, a lot of the rural counties can't get driver's ed teachers. Could they also access this if they use a private agency? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is for every student, whether they're in driver education or not. This is just them. And that's where, like I said, my ability to reach out and be an advocate kind of fall flat because I've only got access to or good relationships with those schools where they do have driver education. I stop by and try to promote driver education everywhere, but some systems don't have it. Tuscaloosa City, County, and Calhoun County and Cherokee County, several others don't have any driver education. So when they see an email or correspondence from me, they just disregard it because they don't have driver education, but so yeah, this is it's yeah, not tied to driver education to have the fee waived. Every student that goes to get a learner's license has to get a DL 193 form to take to the Lee exam office.
Thanks, Jeremy, for clarifying. And LaDonna, hopefully, I think I just allowed you to speak if you had a follow-up.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that if the homeless student or unaccompanied homeless youth gets credit for taking the course, then through our grants and budgetary set asides, they can use a private agency to get those get the training. So with that being said, those rural counties, if they don't have a teacher and there's a agency or a company nearby that wants to contract or come down just for a group of children, then they can do that as long as it's a credit bearing course. So is it still, when I was in school, you used to get credit for it. So I don't
Yeah,
even know if you still get
credit.
Okay.
Yeah, but that I mean that yeah yeah you and I need to talk sometime to
Okay.
get to work on getting driver education in those rural, and it's not only rural, like I said, it's Tuscaloosa that doesn't have any driver ed right there in the city. So
Yeah.
yeah, those students would still qualify for the being a qualified student if they're identified on the DL 93 form from the school.
Okay, because I know one of my counties in particular, 80% of the people didn't drive. And so the younger kid, the children were not getting the training because nobody in the family drove. And
Correct. Yeah.
so, when they go to college, they got some issues because a lot of them were going places and didn't know how to drive
What system is
that
that?
had been in our program.
What system was that?
I want to say it was Perry, the mop,
Yeah.
somewhere down, it was West Alabama.
Just brought it back this semester at RC Hatch, thankfully.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, they didn't have it. That's it. So thank you for that information.
Yeah.
And the young man that, the first young man that we helped, he didn't take he's a senior, or is he a junior? I think he's a senior this year. Yes, he is. And he is 18 and he never got to take, I don't think he got to take driver's ed. And because his mom would never let him. And I think they had some transportation issues like LaDonna was talking about, where they didn't have a vehicle in the family. And so he never really got that instruction in the family either. And so it's probably, since he didn't have that instruction, it's probably why he didn't pass that exam the first time, but
Right.
he did pass it the second time.
Good.
So he was able to get the license.
Glad to hear it. Well, we're getting close to the hour, but I do want to leave a minute or two if there are any other questions or points to raise.
No, I'm happy to help out anyway. If everybody's got my contact information, just reach out to me if I can help out. And as myself and the other Brian Carter, Stuart Mosley, and Dale Barnes go around to schools, we'll continue to spread the word to those that fill out the school enrollment form, and make sure they're aware of the law and the benefits of knowing the law for those students.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I think, it always takes some time for word to get out when these laws pass. And then even when the word is out, there's always more improvements that could be made in terms of processes. And so I think hopefully today was an opportunity for people not only to learn about the law, but to learn a little bit and discuss some ways to improve how we're all interacting with youth and students who are moving towards taking advantage of this law. The last couple slides are just some contact information, both for Schoolhouse Connection and all our social media, quick sign up for our newsletter plug as well as the advocacy network at Schoolhouse Connection. And I want to highlight this because part of how we got to where we are today is through advocacy with folks like Denise and the rest of the people that she worked with when they were looking to develop this policy and recognizing that there was a need at the state. And the only way those things happen is if people on the local level get engaged in the advocacy process. So encourage you all to join our network so you can dig in not only as to what's happening in Alabama, but also at a federal level as it relates to students experiencing homelessness. So last slide is everybody's contact. As Jeremy mentioned here, you can reach out to him and Rod, myself, and Denise if you have questions, and we'll certainly follow up. You should get an email with the slide deck in the next day or so, and we'll follow up about that poster as well and make sure that there are whatever resources you all need to make this effective, we can certainly help provide those.